So we have come to the last part of chapter 3, comparison of classism and Keynesianism. Comparison of classism and Keynesianism. Okay, so we are going to see the difference between classical theory and Keynesian theory. Okay, this is found on page number 46. This is a very, very important question. It may be asked as a 5 mark or 3 mark question, and it is very, very easy to understand and memorize also. So I want you to learn this question and the answer today itself. So first we have Keynesianism and next we have classism. So first point, Keynes theory is for a short run equilibrium. It is for a short period. So equilibrium happens during the short period, because during the short period the wages and the prices do not change. It is not flexible. It is stable. So short run equilibrium can be achieved. Whereas under classism we have for a long period. It is for a long time. So it is long run equilibrium. Equilibrium is a point where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. So aggregate demand and aggregate supply will be equal in the long period, whereas here it will happen in the short period. So according to Keynes, savings is a vice. That means savings is bad. According to classism, savings is the social virtue. So why is savings bad? So generally we have a Sanchayka competition and everybody talks about savings. Okay. So every year you have heard during the competition people speak or girls say that savings is good. Savings is good. We all have to save. பணம் பத்தும் செய்யும் பணம் பணத்தை பார்த்தால் என்னது பிணமும் வாயை திறக்கும் அப்படின்லாம் பேசியிருக்கோம் சேவிங்ஸ் ரொம்ப குட்னு பட் கீன்ஸ் ஹியர் சேஸ் சேவிங்ஸ் இஸ் பேட். So you should understand one thing here, okay? As economic students, you must know about savings. Savings for an individual is good. Always savings for an individual is good. Savings for an individual is a social virtue. But when you take it as a society, according to Keynes, it's bad. Why? Why does he say that? When people start saving more and more, that means they are consuming less. So when they consume less, the overall demand also falls down. For example, if there are 10 fridges in the shop and people have started saving, so nobody is buying fridge now. So what happened to the fridges? All the fridges produced are stacked up in the showroom itself. Nobody is there to buy because people have started to save. So what happens? All the fridges are there. So what will the entrepreneur do? He will not produce any fridges further because he wants to sell the 10 fridges first. After selling that only he will produce more. So what happens? Now since there are lot of fridges in the market, people who are producing or the entrepreneur who is producing the fridges will stop his production. So what happens? People who are working in the fridge factory lose their employment. So there is unemployment problem and therefore it becomes an economic crisis. So did you understand? So according to Keynes, if a society starts saving more and more, the consumption will reduce and there will be a reduction in the overall demand, which will lead to overproduction. Already there are produced products, which will lead to unemployment and naturally there will be an economic crisis. But according to classism, savings is a social virtue. So classical economists considered saving to be a great virtue. So they encouraged hard work and they encouraged earning and they encouraged minimum spending and minimum consumption. Why did they encourage that? When an individual saves more and when he spends less on consumption goods, he is accumulating the surplus. Whatever is left out with him is called a surplus. Whatever I use for consumption and the remaining part with me is called a surplus. So when an individual starts consuming less, he is left with more surplus. This surplus can be utilized in the interest of the community as a whole. So when individual savings increases, the national savings increases, which in turn increases the capital formation. So classism during the classicism period, or the classical economists said that saving is a social virtue, whereas Keynes says that savings is bad or savings is a vice. Then under Keynes, we have the macro approach, all aggregates, okay, studying the economic problem as a whole, macro approach to national problems. So any problem must be considered as a whole problem of the society. So macro approach to national problem, whereas here they studied about micro foundation to macro problems. They wanted to study about the problems of the individuals. Keynes advocated state intervention. So Keynes says that there must be a state and the state must intervene. What to produce, how to produce, whom to produce, the state can also take the decision. But whereas here it was laissez-faire policy, that means free trade. It was left in the hands of the market. The market itself can decide what to produce, how to produce, and whom to produce. There was freedom. Laissez-faire means there was freedom in all the decisions, whereas here the state had to intervene. Fifth one, rate of interest is determined by the demand for and supply of money. So rate of interest is determined by how much is demanded by the society and how much money is there in the society. So based on this, the rate of interest was determined. So rate of interest was determined by the demand and supply of money. Here, rate of interest was determined by saving and investment. So based on how much people are saving and how much they are demanding for investment, based on this, rate of interest was determined. So here, rate of interest was determined by the demand and supply for money. Here, rate of interest was determined by saving and investment. Rate of interest is a flow. It keeps changing. Okay. It is at a particular point of time, whereas here rate of interest is a stock. Okay. Stock means at a particular point of time. Rate of interest is a stock, whereas here rate of interest over a period of time, rate of interest is a flow. It keeps changing. Rate of interest keeps changing, whereas rate of interest is steady. It is a stock. Here, demand creates its own supply. Okay. Demand creates its own supply, whereas here it is supply creates its own demand. Here what they say, only when you demand, okay, only when there is a demand, people need to supply. But whereas here they say, when you supply, you get money, and when you get money only you can demand. But here Keynes says, okay, let there be supply. People are making and producing something and they are getting money. If they are not willing to part with the money, or if they are not willing to spend, there will not be any demand. So Keynes justifies that demand only creates its own supply, and not like Say's law saying that supply creates its own demand. This is the Say's law. He says only when there is supply there will be demand. But here Keynes says only if there is a demand, people will tend to supply. Last one, here Keynes says it is unbalanced budget. Here it is balanced budget. If revenue is equal to expenditure, it is called balanced budget. If revenue is not equal to expenditure, it is called as unbalanced budget. If R is equal to E, revenue is equal to expenditure, it is called balanced budget. If R is not equal to E, it is called as unbalanced budget. This we will be learning it in the 7th chapter, balanced budget and unbalanced. This is applicable to all situations. That is, even if there is full employment or unemployment or underemployment. So Keynesian theory is called as a general theory. It can be used for all situations. Whereas here, classism, in classical theory, it is applicable only for the full employment situation. Only when all the resources are fully employed, this theory will be useful. Whereas this theory is applicable in all situations. Here, lastly, capitalism has contradictions. So, Keynes is criticizing the classical economist view. He says classism has its own inherent contradictions. What do you mean by inherent contradictions? They say that capitalism is a free trade. So what happens? There is inequality of income. In a capitalistic economy, the wealth is concentrated in a few hands. The rich become richer and the poor become poorer. So in the capitalistic economy, since there is free trade or there is freedom for both the consumers and the producers, there is all possibility for inequality of income. That means the wealth will be concentrated in very few hands. The rich become richer and the poor become poorer. But here the classical economists say that it is well and good. Capitalism is well and good. But Keynes criticizes, saying that capitalism has its own contradictions. Okay, so I hope you understood the difference between classicism and Keynesianism. Okay, so this is a very, very important question. Keynesian and classical economic views have been discussed here. So the comparison between Keynesian theory and classical theory. So to sum up, what all did we see? Please wait a moment. Let me go from the beginning. Okay. I think this lesson was quite interesting, girls, and it is very easy also. It seems to be difficult, but when you hear to my videos over and over again, I think you will be able to understand. So this is the theories of employment and income. Then I gave an introduction saying that we'll be studying about the classical and the Keynesian theory here. Then I explained what is meant by full employment. Then we saw about unemployment and its types. Then the types of unemployment: cyclical unemployment, seasonal, frictional, educated, technical, structural, and disguised. Then we saw about each unemployment. Okay, this is very important as it will be asked in 2 marks or 3 marks or even 5 marks questions. Okay, then we saw the classical theory of employment. So classical theory is composed of the different views of classical economists. And Adam Smith is one of the famous classical economists. He had written a book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of Wealth of Nation, in the year 1776. And other famous classical economists are David Ricardo, J.S. Mill, J.B. Say, and A.C. Pigou. Okay. This is the picture of J.B. Say, and the law given by him is called as the Say's law of market, which means supply creates its own demand. Then we saw about Say's law. We saw the Say's law and the circular flow of income. I explained about the assumptions of Say's law. Then we saw the implications of Say's law. Then we dealt with the criticism of Say's law. Okay, then after Say's, we have John Maynard Keynes. He was called as the father of modern macroeconomics, and I've given a short note about John Maynard Keynes. It is a box item in your textbook, so you need to go through this carefully for any one-word questions may be asked from this box item also. Then we saw the Keynes theory of employment and income. Then we saw the concept of effective demand. Effective demand is you must have the desire, you must have the ability to buy, and it is the starting point of Keynesian theory. It denotes the money actually spent by the people on the products of industry. Then the Keynes theory, it was given in the form of flowchart. This is not seen in your textbook. It is given as a paragraph, but at the end of the chapter you have the questions where you have this question, Keynes theory in the form of flowchart. So you must know to draw this flowchart. Then we saw the aggregate demand function, the aggregate demand function curve, that is the aggregate demand curve. Okay, we saw the aggregate demand function and the aggregate demand curve. Then we saw the aggregate supply function and the components of aggregate supply and the aggregate supply curve. So in 5 marks, they might ask you write about the aggregate demand function and aggregate demand curve, or the aggregate supply function and the aggregate supply curve. When supply curves and demand curves are asked, you're expected to draw the graph and explain it. Then we saw the equilibrium between ADF and ASF. That is what we saw today. Equilibrium between ADF and ASF. There are two approaches to study this. The aggregate demand approach, the aggregate demand, aggregate supply approach, and the saving investment approach. And we have only this in our syllabus, aggregate demand, aggregate supply approach. So this was an extra tabular column which is not given in your textbook. I just wanted to explain the concept of linear consumption function and non-linear consumption function. So I have this slide included. Then we saw the equilibrium between ADF and ASF. Then lastly, we saw the comparison of classism and Keynesianism. Okay, Keynesianism. So please learn this. The comparison between Keynes theory and the classical theory. Okay, I think with this we will stop today's class. Please do the assignments given and the homework given. I want you to study the daily lessons. Okay, please don't postpone it, girls. When you postpone it, the portions get piled up, and then you get fear, and you will start worrying about how we can study. So please study your daily lessons. Any doubts if you have, please post it in the group, or you can also give me a missed call, or you can just text me and I will also call you. Please do not worry. God is there. I am also there for you. Anytime you can call me and clarify your doubts. Thank you, girls. God bless you.